Hi, my name's Jeff Noble. In this episode, we're going to set up our environment and we'll take a look at the anatomy of a simple C# program. This is the Noble Cause Software Development Course. All right, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do today is set up our environment. What that means is we're going to set up a folder with a place to store our projects. We want them always to be easily accessible. So let's go ahead and open up our File Explorer. You can do that with this icon in Windows 10. If you don't see that one, you can find it in the Start menu, either at the top where it says File Explorer. I've got one over here. Or if you just click the Start menu, you can always type the word File, and you'll see it in the list over here. All right, so we're going to put our files under our profile. So how do we get there? I'm going to click this PC, then double-click the C drive, and we're going to go into Users, and then your name. My name's Jeff, so I'm going to choose that. Whatever you logged into Windows as, that's what your folder is going to be called. So we'll double-click inside Jeff, and right here in this list of files and folders, we're going to create a projects folder. So we can either right click and do new folder, or we can click the new folder button here. If you don't see this ribbon up here with all these selections, you can just double click the tabs that are up here: File, Home, Share, View. If you click it once, it'll come up, but then when you click off of it, it closes. But if you double click it, it'll stay around. So I'll click new folder and I'll type projects. All my projects that I'm going to create for this course will be inside this folder. So I'm going to double click inside projects, and today I'm going to create a new folder, and we're just going to call this episode 0. So welcome to episode 0. In episode 0, we're going to talk about some of the basics of Visual Studio, how a program works, and where to store our things. All right, so now we have a place to store our project. One thing that's kind of a pain, though, here is if I close this File Explorer and open it back up, we're back to square one here, and I have to go back to this PC, C drive, Users, Jeff, Projects, where I got to scroll to find it, and then I can choose from any of my projects. In this case, I only have episode 0. As we record episodes, we're going to have more and more of these folders, and I don't want to go through all that. So I'm going to use this bar and go back to Jeff. I'm going to find my projects here, and I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to pin to quick access. What that's going to do is it's going to put it under quick access here in my Explorer. So now, even if I close this and reopen, I can just click projects and I'm here. Now it's important to know that it still lives in the same place. It's still under C Users, Jeff Projects, but it's just a fast way to get to it. All right, now we've got a place for our stuff. Let's go ahead and create some stuff. We're going to need to open Visual Studio 2019. I've got mine pinned down here on the taskbar. If you don't have that, you can always hit the Start menu. You can type Visual Studio, and when that comes up, you can right-click it, and in there, you can pin to the Start, and you can pin to the taskbar. All right, so let's open Visual Studio, and we're going to create a new project. That's this big button down here at the bottom. All right, so now Visual Studio says, I can create a new project for you, but you've got to tell me what kind. There's all different types of programs we can create. We can choose different programming languages. We can make websites or mobile apps or console applications or class libraries, and we'll get into all that. But for now, we're just going to stick with some simple console applications till we kind of get our legs here, and then we'll dive into some deeper things. So I'm going to look through this list and look for a console application. If you don't see it, you don't have to scroll this whole list. You can search in the template up here, just type the word console, and it will narrow down this list. So in this case, it's got console application, and you can see that this one's C# and it runs on Linux, Mac, OS, Windows. or there's the .NET Framework version of a console app. For this course, we're going to be focusing on .NET Core or .NET 5, and so we want to choose the multi-platform one, not the .NET Framework version. So I'm going to choose Console Application and click Next. Now we have to give our project a name. I'm going to call this Episode 0. In addition to that, we're going to save it in a location. Well, we already set up our environment, so we know where we're going to save that. I'm going to click these 3 ellipses here, and look, it opens up an Explorer. So just like before, we go down Quick Access, click Projects, and I'm going to choose the Episode 0 folder and click the Select Folder button. So that tells Visual Studio, as I create things and as we save things, save them in here. We're going to leave the solution name Episode 0. We'll see what that is later on. Go ahead and click Next. And now it's asking us, what is our target framework? We're going to go with .NET 5, which is the current latest, greatest version of .NET. We're going to click Create. And Visual Studio is going to create what's called a boilerplate, the basics that we need for a simple C# program. All right, so first things first, don't get overwhelmed. All this stuff will come in time. You don't need all of it right away anyway. So we're going to talk about a couple of the simple things. First, we're going to look over here at the Solution Explorer. That's this tab. And in it, we see our solution and our project. We also see any dependencies that we would need, which are like third-party libraries to help us do things so we don't have to write all of our own code. And then there's Program CS. Program CS is kind of a special file when it comes to console applications. This is the entry point into your application. So if it's not already up and open on a tab over here in the main window, go ahead and double-click Program CS. And let's take a look at what it is. So we've got a namespace and a using statement at the top, lines 1 through 3. I'm not going to go into that today. We'll have a whole episode on namespaces and imports. Then we have a class program, which is the same name as our file, program CS, class program. And then we have static void main. So the important thing to know here is the curly braces. That's these little squigglies here. You can see there's a dotted line between the beginning and the ending of the curly brace. So we would say that the namespace of Episode 0 starts here on line 4 and ends here on line 12. Our class, called program, starts on line 6 and ends on line 11. And our main method starts on line 8 and ends on line 10. So when we run this program, it's going to load the class and it's going to call the method. So whatever happens is going to happen in between main line 8 and main line 10. In our case, there's only one line of code in here that was put in by Visual Studio, and it just says in your console, write out a line with the word hello world and an exclamation point. And the semicolon at the end just says that's the end of this command. So if we run this by clicking this green start button up here, you'll see that a console window will open. Hopefully mine opens on the same monitor I'm recording here on. There it is. And if we give it a minute, it takes a little longer the first time. You can see that the very first line here is hello world, just like we told it to do. So there we are. We wrote and ran our first program without typing a line of code. Visual Studio gave us all that stuff. The rest of the stuff on here is just basically telling you I was done, but I didn't close this window because it would have happened so fast you wouldn't have been able to read hello world. So I automatically said, I'm going to wait until you press any key to close this window. So if we close the window, if we press any key, the window disappears and we're done. So why don't you play around with changing what's in between these quotes. Instead of hello world, I'm going to delete that stuff and I'm going to put hello Jeff. And I'm going to put a bunch of exclamations. If I run that now, it'll save the file automatically. And now it says hello Jeff. So you just wrote and edited your first program. So that's all for this episode. I just wanted to show you how to create a new project, how to save it in a location, how to identify what code is going to run when we actually start our program, and then how to look at the Solution Explorer to see what files exist in our program. In the next episode, we'll dive in deeper, but for now, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you next time.